And we're live. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome, Chris Harmon. Jess, who we appreciate being here today because we know she feels like crap. Uh, and welcome again, Chris Harmon from WASP. Chris, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Thank you very much for having me. So my name's Chris Harmon, like she mentioned, founding organizer for WASP. Pretty much my overall goal is to find cases for us, talk with the clients, set up any type of case that we can get a hold of. I am a dad of 4 wonderful kids, ranging anywhere from 6 to 16, soon to be 17. And then I have been married for over 18 years to my wonderful wife, Jackie, still continuing strong. Born and raised here in the state of Utah. Big fan of retro things such as retro video games, old monster movies, music such as classic rock is a great example. Like, I got to say, that theme music, that's actually one of my favorite Fleetwood Mac songs. So good choice there. Love it to death.
Yeah, well, we gotta send a shout out to Rosie for hooking us up with that. She definitely nailed the feel that Jess and I wanted for our shows, and Rosie did a great job with that.
Oh, she did a fantastic job. It's funny because there is actually a particular tune that if I ever brought Wasp Radio back, a podcast that we used to have a year ago, I would love to use something from the Police off of their Ghost in the Machines album. So there's actually some pretty
Great
good tunes
album.
there.
Great album. I seen
Secret Journey, in fact.
I seen the Police in, oh Lord, it was probably like 81 or 82. And this is going to reel up, of course, I don't hide my age, I'm 55. But this was a concert. It was Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Def Leppard, and I remember standing there going, who the hell is Def Leppard? So that tells you how long ago that was.
Yeah, that's out there. But the funny part is a lot of the... Nope, you're still here.
My signal seems to be jumpy today.
Yeah, you had a little second where I think you had some cloud cover, but you're pretty clear now.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's funny with Def Leppard. Some of my favorite albums of theirs is like their very first stuff. So,
I think I am a little bit delayed, but yeah.
I love technology. Isn't it wonderful?
Well, we're not us if we don't have some tech issues.
Fact, paranormal stuff works in mysterious ways.
Right, right. So we are going to talk today about it really is. It really has become a it really has become a thing with our show since we started. Doesn't matter what show, what time of day, we're going to have some kind of technical issues. But I'm down here in the country. You know, we were talking a little bit about where I am and renovations and how stuff's going to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
I've got all the elements to bring in paranormal activity right now.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Anyway, so I met Chris a couple of weeks ago on the Petri Dish that I co-host with Howard and Jackie Harmon, who is Chris's cousin, and also Chad Candy is a co-host on there as well. And Chris brought up an interesting theory. Of course, our team, Scientific Paranormal Inspection Research Investigation Team, we are always open to work with other teams when it comes to studies. And Chris mentioned this theory he has about the boogeyman and the monsters, that the kids, have these fears of. And I'm going to let him tell you about it, but it intrigued me so much. Of course, I wanted him on our show, and I want our team to jump on this study with them because there's something real about it, obviously.
Well, it's interesting because it was like a year ago, back in February, where we talked about it on my old show, WASP Radio, which was on KGRA. You can actually pick it up on Spotify. It's still on there. But we were talking about how children and animals and how the paranormal affects them. And I brought up the thing about the boogeyman or the monster underneath your bed, boogeyman coming out of the closet. And how it all started out for me was when I was a young kid, 4 or 5 years old, watching the real Ghostbusters cartoon. And they had the episode of the boogeyman coming out of one of the kids' closet. And it was affected by Egon because he had a situation when he was younger. And his goal was to try to either capture or keep the boogeyman from coming into the world. But it brought up an interesting thought. It's like when kids say they see the monster underneath their bed or a boogeyman coming out of their closet, we know it's not a real monster because there's no such thing as monsters, but it could be something of the spiritual world that is coming out of the closet, making its presence known. We were mentioning on the Petri Dish about wandering spirits. It could be something along those lines where it's a wandering spirit wandering around trying to find a place to go. It could be along those lines. And as I started deep in going into this a little bit more, because one of the first things I had to look up is what is the boogeyman? And believe it or not, it's all over the world where they bring up the topic of the boogeyman in many different shapes or forms. For instance, in Spanish America, they've got what is called the Sackman or El Hombre de Costal is what they like to call it. It's a form of it. And then you've also got in Haiti, in some countries of Asia, that also has the El Coco or Akuka, however you want to pronounce it. So it really starts to study where does all this come from and why parents use it to scare their kids when in reality, your kids are seeing something in the closet. And there's been a couple of times where I've talked to children in the middle of an investigation, most recently one that we had in Tooele, Utah, this past February, where a young boy said he was seeing something in the closet during this investigation. Instead of being an adult being like, oh, you're just seeing things, it's just your imagination. Because one of the things we were told about this young boy was he does have an active imagination. But I sat there right next to him and started asking questions about what he was seeing. And he did actually, believe it or not, had drawn a picture of what he saw, which looked like in folklore, Slender Man. So he saw a male spirit that came out of his closet. And it really you start putting this thesis together, and it makes you wonder what other kids are seeing. So I've been reaching out on social media as much as possible, telling people, hey, will you do me a favor? If you've got children that are seeing the boogeyman coming out of their closet or a monster underneath their bed, I would like to ask some questions about it and get a picture drawn from the young child. So it's a work in progress. I've had only 2 people really respond so far because with a lot of parents out there, our biggest problem is we tend to just say, "Oh, it's your active imagination," But parents need to realize
Right.
that what your children are seeing is real because they're closer to Earth than any of us. They're still brand new on this life. That they're still connected to the heavens, and they can sense a lot more than we can.
Well, and there's a reason
Right.
that in horror movies, when they don't listen to the children, they usually die.
Exactly. See.
Now, for me,
Right.
I don't tell mine that it's imagination. I give them, I'm sure we've all heard of the monster be gone spray. You give your kids a little spray bottle of water. No, mine get water that's infused with sage and other things because I'm a witch and I'm not crazy.
Yeah. There you go.
But it is going to be interesting to see because, like you said, the one that looks more like Slender Man, how much of
Yes,
the
Rosie,
shape
please
they
do.
take is based on popular media at the time too.
Hmm. And another thing I was looking into as well, the Pixar movie Monsters Inc., because it's a great example of how children react when they see something underneath their bed or a monster coming out of the closet, which in this case, it's a monster coming out of the closet. We all know how the story is with Monsters Inc. I don't think
Right.
it's necessarily what they're seeing is a monster per
Hmm.
se, but to
Right.
them, it is a monster
Yeah.
because it's
Right.
something they've never seen before. They don't know how
Right.
to respond. They don't know what ghosts or spirits are at this time. They're going to
Right.
respond as it's being a monster. And it could be a number of things. And I've even think to this point too, it could be a relative that they've never seen before that's passed
Yep.
on before them. And it could be
Absolutely.
generations. So it's one of those things where they're frightened. And if it's a relative that was of a negative energy, it's not going to come out pretty at all.
No.
So
Right.
they don't know how to respond. They don't know
Right. I
what to
mean,
do.
yeah, we've talked about this before. If you were an asshole in life, you're not just all of a sudden a good guy when you die.
No.
Charles
Hmm.
Manson didn't all of a sudden just become,
A
this
saint.
heavenly angel, doing good deeds for the world. I'm sure he's an asshole somewhere in the afterlife. And
Hmm.
imagine, having him as your ancestor. That's definitely a monster under your bed if he decides to visit.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah. And then it's kind of a touchy subject, but what if the person was a person that really touched kids? And I'm not
Yep.
saying touch
Exactly,
as
exactly. I know what you're
you get where
saying.
I'm at. Yeah, you
Right,
get
Hmm.
where I'm going with it could be one of those where it's also a very sickening feeling that's coming through to you.
Hmm.
It's one of these theories that there's going to be a
oh,
lot of
now see,
research
and
you have to
that
put on
makes
it.
me, that takes my brain to, just my own things when I was a child.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory there. That's something I never really thought of either.
Hmm. This is one of those studies that if we all, it's how I look at the paranormal is I don't think we should be working against each other. I think we should be working with each other. It's a
Hmm.
pair.
Absolutely.
I look at para unity as a whole level because if we're working together, we're all going to discover something that's going to help the research.
Yep.
Not one,
Exactly.
not one person or one team is going to come up with all the answers. There's more answers out there each side of it.
And I
What
think
you,
the paranormal community could benefit from that in a lot of different areas too. Just that
Mhm,
little bit of unity helping to move things along.
exactly. And when it comes to
And that's
children,
always
especially,
been our goal. Our goal has always been the scientific end of this. If we go in somewhere and we could truly prove that there's paranormal activity there, we haven't debunked it, with whatever the case may be,
mhm,
then our goal as a team is one day paranormal will not be paranormal
Paranormal.
because we have all this scientific research and evidence to show it's really normal.
fact,
It might be supernatural, but it is normal.
exactly.
Right. And the way we all figure that out is we all work together and share our information, and we all put it into, in Witch World we'd call it a book of shadows or a grimoire, but we put it all in one place So in 50 years, 100 years, people can go and look at it and say, wow, they were right there at the edge of discovering, because they might be sitting at the kitchen table with their ancestors in 50 years.
Exactly. See, for WASP, it stands for Western Association for the Science of the Paranormal. We do also look at the scientific side of things, but we're a jack of all trades because we also have Wiccan, we have a Druid, we have psychic mediums, we have we have a couple of empaths. It's everything that's bundled together that works together to come up with the answers. And even our Druid is one of the biggest skeptics out there, and it's hard for him to not want to debunk something. Most recently, a case that we just did this past Saturday down in Sandy, Utah, he actually went out on, and there was a lot of things going on in the home. If he is saying that, you got something. That's for certain. But 9 times out of 10, he's the first one to debunk it, and you like that's very valid, very good, and you kind of need that too. You can't think everything's paranormal. You got to have that open mind. Okay, it could be paranormal, but it could also be this, and this could be the answer to what's going on.
I think the only place that we ever go into and our first thought is not new. That's not paranormal. There's an explanation. The only place I ever walk into that's not my first thought is her parents' house.
Of course, right?
Grace, we call it Graceland of Alabama.
It is an uncomfortable house.
I believe it.
There's some sketchy stuff that goes on there, and it's the property.
But we've also been investigating it for over a year now.
History.
Yeah, I can totally agree that.
So there's definitely a boogeyman in the closet over there.
There you go. Perfect.
Or a few.
No, there's places out here in Utah that we can say does have that feeling of energy and everything. Chris Black, who's one of my founders, and he's also our lead analyst for evidence. His house in Ogden, Utah, is 3 blocks away from the Ogden Cemetery. It's got activity. There's no doubt about it. And I mentioned before we start the show that you don't investigate your own place, but we ended up investigating his place with him being there, and we learned a lot that he was dealing with in that house. You could tell by the energy, but you can also tell it's Roman spirits coming from the cemetery coming into his home.
Right. Yeah, I've been known as being the debunker myself. I always look for the reasonable explanation. But I went into paranormal for just like everybody else, I guess, to get those answers. Is there life after death? And we did, I don't know how many investigations, and it was actually a barn where I work at that proved to me there is life after death, and they will. I always felt like I wasn't alone there. I feed the horses, take care of the barn there. Always felt like at night I wasn't alone there. And when we first kicked off Spirit, we had some new equipment, temperature gauge and stuff. So a few of us, well, let's go down to the barn. I had some cleaning to do. And we were just not really investigating. They were playing with equipment. I was just cleaning the barn, wiping counters and stuff down. And when we got back to the hotel that night and we were listening to the audio, very clearly we had and then our audio guy took that and did all the analyzing stuff that y'all do. That's not me. And in that same breath of die, there's a woman's voice under there saying, what is she doing there? What is she doing? So it was a lot of WHTH words, you couldn't really make it out. And then a few seconds later, you hear, and it sounds just like this in real time. But then when they slowed it down, again, it was that woman. What is she doing over there? Where is she going over there? Something like that. So hearing that and knowing we were the only 3 people in the barn, and like you could hear, the other 2 people that were with me, you could hear them in the background talking. And then this whisper is like it came right on top of the voice recorder. Like it was just sitting right there. It went over their voices. Um, Crazy, crazy thing. So it was in that moment that I thought, well, wow, there really is something to this. And I think we said it the other night on how one of the shows. I sat in for Jess on one of them, so I don't know what day, what show, where I've been. I've just been all over the place. But I mentioned that the more I have learned, the less I know about paranormal.
Hmm.
I have more.
Yeah.
The more I learn, the more questions I have.
Yeah, I think there's an unlimited amount of questions when it comes to the paranormal, and it just based off of experiences. Kind of like what you're saying when you had you had a lot of questions about it. My first experience was back in 2000 in an amusement park called Lagoon here in Farmington, Utah, and part of it is called Pioneer Village. A lot of the houses, the buildings there, came from the old Salt Lake City days back in the 1800s. They as well as a city that's underwater now called Rockport, all came into Lagoon as part of this attraction. And you could definitely feel the atmosphere. It is very dense there with a lot of activity. But the experience I had one night, they had this old shooting game called Bonanza, which was the light gun game where you shot at items and they'd bounce around. There's a piano player, creepy as hell piano player that would sit
Right.
there, play the piano. I think it was like one or two, maybe different tunes. Well, about 20 minutes before we shut the game down for the night, everything you shot at, including the items that weren't working, all went off at once. And I was startled. I'm like, okay, this is different. As soon as all of them stopped, you start hearing footsteps down this hallway that only employees can go through. So my first thought is, okay, we got an employee that's coming in, but he's decided to play a practical joke on me. So I start going up that way, try to meet the person, and I'm like, very funny. That was a very cruel joke. But as I'm walking down there, I'm noticing no one's down that hallway. And I decide to go out the door, walk around the game. I'm by myself. There is no one there making all this happen. So I froze in fear. I'm like, this isn't right. What the heck's going on? It did lead to a lot of questions. Why? How? What? Where? How? You know?
Well, and haunted amusement parks, just
And I
amusement
could
parks
see
in general.
Jess's face the whole time you were talking. I don't know if you were watching that, Chris, but that was like, that is this like your big fear, Jess? Is haunted?
Look, look, haunted amusement parks, abandoned amusement parks. I don't. No, thank you. Nope.
Did you have an experience in one that caused you to be this way? If you don't mind me asking?
No, it's not. I don't know what it is about the feel. Like I would investigate there. I'm not going to say I wouldn't because I'll go investigate anywhere. But I'm going to be uncomfortable the whole time. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, all right, I'll go, but I'm complaining the whole time. I don't know what it is about an amusement park that's haunted or abandoned, but it gives me this one. It just gives me this particular feeling that I can't get past.
Whatever the reason is, I still try to figure out these days what goes on there. But at the same time, too, I also look at the history. I know Lagoon here in Utah, there have been some deaths. Most recently last year, there's the Sky Ride where it's just the one that goes right across the park. A guy was drunk, was just messing around on this, and he fell out of it and killed himself.
Hmm.
And this was as of recent last year. There's a ride called Puff, the Magic Dragon. There's someone who stood up and got decapitated. This is all the stories that I've heard. And supposedly the North parking lot, what used to be a cemetery.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of things going on in this place that it is number one on my bucket list. Ever since that one I had, I've always wanted to go and investigate this place, which I've heard mixed reactions. There's been times I've emailed them asking, and they had a snide remark like, good luck finding your ghost, to a point where now I'm hearing security guards say, yeah, they actually allow it. All you have to do is email the marketing department. So I'm looking into that a little bit more. But ever since that day, it's like, okay, how does it happen? Why does it happen? Why can't I see it? All those questions pop in my head. So ever since then, it's like, okay, I I want to see more about this. I want to get into this more. So in 2009, that's when me and my buddy Luke decided to go check out a place called Steed's Pond, which is about 5 minutes from me north from here. And there was a legend about a young boy who was swimming in the pond one early summer afternoon and drowned. And then there was reports that you would see his spirit at the school next door, which is Holt Elementary, south of the pond. So we started to do a little research. We did find out that 3 children did drown in the pond that were in a canoe, but the whole entire thing about the young boy and the spirit, which there's another interesting part of that. Supposedly parents were handed letters about this spirit showing up, which I found out from the school that was all nonsense, which I'm not surprised. Let's be honest. Like a school's going to do that to you. But just hearing those, it's like, okay, we got to go and see if we can make contact with this child. The other thing about this pond is off to the east of it is a walkway that used to be the Denver Rio Grande Railroad that they turned into a walkway for people to jog and everything. One night, we're walking down that pathway with a digital recorder. And to kind of explain how, I'm going to kind of mimic what happened, but I'm kind of talking like this, and all of a sudden, our voices are sounding like this. We're barely soft, barely coming in, and then it goes back up. And as we're listening to this closely, we're hearing bells from an old train. So we may have caught a ghost train. And right there, we're like, okay, we got to continue doing this. And as they say, the rest is history. It wasn't WASP at that time. We were called 4GH or 4 Ghost Hunters just to have fun. But we we went between 2009 and 2010. We investigated a lot of places. Took a hiatus between 2010 to 2017 because a lot of us were going on. A lot of us had things going on in life. But I was still studying it where I would take the time to investigate like my old business that I used to work with in Ogden. It's an old thrift store that had activity going on. So I kept on studying it since that time and learned a lot, but not just from my experiences, but from other paranormal researchers who are out there studying this, because there's a lot of ways to look at this.
Right, right. And whoever on Prometheus Productions was asking, is everything okay? Yes, I'm sure that was because you were noticing the lights flashing in and out. They're working on electrical stuff, so they were trying to find the right breaker. So, there's my little warning up there again. We do have home renovations going on. If you hear pounding, drilling, sawing, light flashing, everything is okay. That's not paranormal today.
As of
I
right
think
now, right?
I
As
think
of right now.
on thinking about it, I think that my issue with amusement parks, because I feel the same way about schools that are haunted or abandoned as well. I think it's because schools, amusement parks, those kind of things tend to stand for childhood, and then
Yeah.
it's that whole feeling of childhood twisted. I think that's what gives me the uncomfy feels.
Okay, I can see that as an understanding. It
And
happens.
I think that most of us as paranormal investigators, anytime a child comes through, it tends to be unnerving. It pulls those heartstrings for sure.
Kids can be creepy
Um,
when they're alive and well. I don't want the
Mhm.
dead. I don't want the dead ones following me around. Thank you. And I say that as a mother of 2.
Yeah, and the ones with the children's spirits, there are ones out there that you get. It's awesome to experience. Like a great example I'll give is last year at a place called Fillingar Ranch, which I talked about on the Petri dish. It's a place that has over 150 years of experience, going back to 1848. It's part of the LDS Church, so polygamy was a part of it. A lot of children. One night the we're in the family room, and we decided to do a little experiment involving music. And the music we decided to choose is something that they're familiar with. With this being part of the LDS Church, we went with some children hymns. Probably the most common one would be I Am a Child of God. Played it, and all of a sudden we started feeling like there was a children atmosphere going on. They really enjoyed that we played that for them, had a good time with it. But we also caught with the SLS a couple of years earlier that 3 spirits.
Jess's face again.
I don't like creepy kids.
But yeah, we've caught kids with the SLS, and we can confirm that it was not a glitch. It was actual evidence, which was really cool. But the one thing about children spirits that also concern me, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but children spirits can also be misleading because it could be something else trying to
Yes,
Right,
play a
I
heartstring.
right.
I
And
absolutely agree with you there.
we're very cautious when it comes to children spirits, that we try to do something that will make it know that the child is, we know you're a child, but if we have a feeling this is a little more darker than a child, we got to be a little more cautious because of it.
Hmm.
Right, right,
We agree with that because, unfortunately, I mean, everybody knows that certain other types of entities sometimes will use a childlike demeanor and front or facade to
Mm-hmm.
come through. I think that's why children are
hey
creepy. You never know
Joshua.
what it is.
Right, right. And Jess, you're probably of that age of like Children of the Corn and
Yes, I am.
all those, Pet Cemetery, and I will say
I have
that
been watching horror movies since I was
something
very,
about kids
very young.
being creepy in movies, I don't like it.
I started watching. I'm a horror movie junkie. I have been watching horror movies since I was a little kid. I don't like kids. I like my kids. Don't get me wrong, but I don't
Same.
like most other
Yeah,
kids.
It's
yeah. Well,
funny because
same. I'm that way too.
to be quite honest, with certain horror movies, I can't even watch them because, like all the paranormal activity movies, I try to stay away from because they seem a little too realistic. But
Yeah,
also, some
I
you
went
can kind of,
into it. I went into the paranormal activity movies and the other found footage style movies like that. I went into them thinking, "Oh, this is going to be cheesy and ridiculous," right?
mm-hmm.
I could like one of them I watched because I'm usually the one who's watching it at midnight alone, like an idiot, and then I'm just sitting in the center of my bed because like I can't get up and walk across the floor to go pee. Something might be under my bed.
What can I say? I appreciate your honesty.
The
It's
the
totally understandable.
Yeah, but I
well,
enjoy being
and
scared.
here
So.
I love horror movies. I've watched just about all of them, but I will not watch them alone. Chris, I'll call you on the phone and we can sit, and just to hear you on the phone breathing while the movie's going on. That's all I need. But I'm the same way. If I'm in the house alone, I can't do it. Can't do it.
Well, I'm
So
going to
now
bring up
I've
some.
got to ask, other than paranormal, what other than the paranormal movies, what else? What other horror movies will you not watch?
I'm going to be honest. The one that gave me the fear of zombies. I'm not going to watch Thriller.
Mm.
I am not watching Thriller. That thing scared the crap out of me as a kid, and to this day, it's left a it's left a bad mark on my body. I can't even listen to Thriller without having chills going down my spine.
Wow.
It freaked me out so bad as a kid that I can't even watch it. I can't listen to the song unless there's other people around me. It's kind of like one
That
of those.
makes sense though, because with me it's Jaws. It's
Right.
Jaws. Any of the shark movies. I
Mhm.
cannot swim in the ocean. I can't
Yeah.
swim in the ocean. That's it. Like the
I'm
lake,
sure
ocean,
that's
anything
my
can't do it.
phobia of I'm not going in the ocean either, and I'm sure Jaws has everything to do with it. I was 7 or 8 years old when that came out and seen it at the drive-in theater.
Yeah, Jaws. Yeah, Jaws. I don't blame anybody on because I can't see myself in the ocean. In fact, the closest to the ocean I ever was the Pacific Ocean when I was an adult, but I was when I was a teenager going into high school. We went out to Huntington Beach, and I'm like, nope, there might be sharks. Not going to happen. So that's the closest I got was the shoreline, and that was it. I'm like, not any closer.
Yeah, no, I've got no desire to go on a cruise. Nope. See that kind of stuff. The Titanic, that's a horror movie. Now, those. It for me, it's the things that can really happen.
Yeah.
Like Strangers, the one
I
with
think
Liv
that might be what I
Tyler.
think that what oh God. Oh, I could not I couldn't be at home alone for quite a
That
while
messed
if for
with me.
strangers. Oh. I think that's why the paranormal activity movies are so creepy though, because it makes it feel like that is something that's gonna happen.
I will point out Ghost Ship. That one, that opening scene where how everybody died is one of the
Yep.
most
The
creative
Wire.
things you could. That is one of
Hmm.
the most creative ways to die. I never would have thought of that, but
Now I think about it a lot.
Now going out there, let's say if it actually did happen and we go out to this ship, what activity are we going to encounter? What sounds are we going to expect? Poltergeist activity. You don't know. And even that movie, I'm like, do I really want to attest a ghost ship? Do I want to go visit the Titanic?
Yep. No, thank you.
Yeah, we all still have fears when it comes to this stuff.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We all still.
We get that question a lot. Do you get scared? Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean we run or, I ran out one night, but I went right back in. Go shake it off and come right back.
Same.
I think the one example I can give during the investigation where I actually had a little fear going through my body was Labor Day night going into morning. We were at that Fielding Gar Ranch place that I talked about. 2:00 in the morning, Sabrina, who was our Wiccan, was doing a tarot card reading, trying to find out more of the history through it. And she uncovered one of the ranch hands was messing around with one of the children. The mom was not happy about it. The dad was so furious. And when he found out, he banished the ranch hand from the island, supposedly. Well, while she's doing all this, we start hearing footsteps in one of the rooms and it comes out. And all of a sudden, I hear out of nowhere a chuckle that we did capture on digital recorder. Very faint, but we caught it. But when I heard that, I was just like, whoa, no way. Because that's the first time I've ever heard a chuckle out loud. It did scare me a little bit, but I was like, oh, we got to keep going. We got more to uncover here.
Dylan, yes, go ahead. Ask your question, please. If it's directed at one certain person, throw that out there too so we know. So, what is the most haunted location that you've ever been to, Chris? That your team, that y'all have investigated?
Well, other than Fielding Gar Ranch, because we've learned the activity there changes all the time, and there's something going on out there for sure. There's where the old Brigham City Hospital used to be at, Bushnell Hospital. A little back history on this place. Back in the 40s during World War II, they opened up this hospital to help with amputees, first place to have penicillin, bedded over 15,000 patients, and also had POWs from Germany, Italy, and Japan. And after World War II was over, the original plans were the city was supposed to keep the hospital and keep it for themselves. They ended up shutting it down and changing their mind. It ended up being converted into an Intermountain Native American school, originally for Navajos. And then in the 70s, they put all tribes in this place, which you can probably feel was not a good idea.
Right, not a good idea.
And it was like the late 70s, early 80s where they shut this down. And a lot of all the buildings stayed abandoned. There was a few that were changed into apartments. There is one set of buildings that got turned into a furniture store and, out of all things, an antique shop. So there's got to be some type of activity going on in there.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that antique shop actually held one of the beds from when it was Bushnell Hospital, and there was still blood on it. I'm like, whoa, there's got to be a lot of activity there. Well, back in 2009, we checked out one of the buildings, and it was the creepiest feeling in the world. Very unsafe because the building was falling apart, and everybody had something that affected them. One particular night, they got into the other part of the building, and it was Chris Black, I think Rick McBride, and another person that walked into this room that saw a pentagram on the floor with a dead cat in the middle of it. And Chris was getting affected where he started hearing, kill them. That's when he proceeded to toss his cookies, so to speak. And we're like, nope, we got to go. We got to go. Another time, this happened last year, we went back out there just on the land because most of the buildings are gone now. Just the ones that I mentioned earlier are still standing. But we go out there by ourselves it was me, Chris Black, and then our videographer for YouTube, John Marchetti, that went out there. And I think it was also Chris Black's daughter, Shy, that went out there with us. And we're out there in the middle of this water, out of this this area. And Chris all of a sudden starts chuckling, and my camera just died. Just kind of like that. And you could see the look on his face. It looked like he wasn't looking good. Had my mail meter in my hand, and I'm like, let's see what he measures up to. He didn't have anything that was pushing out electricity. His cell phone was left in the car. 7.7 milligauss. Wow. And he's like, he looked like he was about ready to lose his lunch again. I'm like, run. He like, run. So we ran out of there. So this place, because of them tearing down the buildings, all the past history from the Native American school, Bushnell Hospital, there's a lot of activity, and it's very frightening there. And we even have, without question, one of our greatest pieces of evidence we've ever captured in this place. And it was Chris Black who caught it with his little $50 night vision camera. And what ended up happening was we didn't see this during the time we were there, but he's just panning along with his camera. And right by this door frame, we pick up a full body apparition of what it looks like to be either a doctor or a World War II soldier.
Wow. Very cool.
I'm going to have to share that with you guys sometime. I'll send it your way so you can see it and everything.
Yeah, and I've got
remarkable.
because you were on a podcast the other day, and I tuned in while you were there, and they were talking about orbs. And our belief, my background is photography, not photography so much, but is developing. That was my thing. I loved being in the dark room and all that stuff. I love that stuff. So I am very aware of what you can and cannot do in a dark room. And digital photography now with paranormal takes on a whole new thing. So as far as photo evidence for our team, we are our biggest critic because, you know, I'm not going to, anything that's got glass, mirror, reflective surface, even if I've got a full body apparition, if there's a mirror or glass or anything, I can't call it evidence.
We had
for
one
a
piece of
client.
evidence one time in a photo, and in this window, it looks like something straight out of a circle of hell. And what it turned out that it was just out of sight of the picture was the client taking a bite of something, so he had his mouth open, and it was making a very odd reflection. So you just never know.
It looked like a damn demon.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are very, very critical on our own photo evidence. But I do have some pretty unusual orbs. And I know I could tell you this from Howard Petrie's location. That's how I actually met Howard, was I investigated his home. So yeah, I see Chris just sent me a video. I have to check that out.
That's the one I was talking about.
Can we share it
on? The question, real quick.
Put it up.
Yeah,
put it up.
I'll send it to Jess.
The question that Dylan had was, he said, "Hi, I'm just wanting to know. I went to a haunted house today. Apparently, in the 1830s, there was an exorcism there, and the devil himself attacked in that property. So I went and ripped some old vintage wallpaper off the wall. It's an abandoned property. Asked if he could go in for a few minutes. The guy said yes, took a bit of the old wallpaper and a rock from the property, and was curious if something could be attached to the items he took. Basically, is it a bad idea to take something from a haunted property? And yes, I agree.
I'm going to give a tip to anybody who's watching this that I really would stress this enough. If you go to a haunted location, it is very respectful not to bring anything back with you. Don't mess with any piece of anything that is a part of that house. I mean, if there's wallpaper, leave it alone. If it is a rock, if it's an old brick, leave it alone. I've had to tell Chris this with our investigation out there at the Bushnell Hospital. He found a brick. He was tempted to bring it home. I'm like, dude, are you stupid? No, do not bring it with you. It can have an attachment to it. It is very possible.
See, Chris, now you've hurt my feelings, because there's a place in Georgia that I really want to go, and they say that The only thing that's left really there is the rubble of brick. Corpsewood Manor. I don't know if you've heard anything about that. Isn't that the
It
name
does
of it?
ring a
Is it
bell.
Corpsewood or is
I
it
think it
Deadwood
is.
Manor?
Yeah,
I think it's
something.
Corpsewood
It's one of
Manor.
those.
Hmm.
And yeah, they say that all that's left there is the pile of bricks. And God, Jess, I've been talking about that one for a year. Let's go. I want a brick. Jess and I both collect rocks. I mean, so it's kind of morbid, of course, because of what happened on the property.
Yeah.
But as a paranormal investigator, it's cool to say,
You
well, this
can't
is
really
where I
go into.
got it.
Well, there's not many of us paranormal investigators that aren't morbid. Just a little bit.
Well, of course,
Well,
right?
true.
Now, and then
It
granted,
comes with the job.
I'm an open-minded guy. I mean, it to each their own. It's one of those things. If you want to do it, that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to judge you for it.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
not bringing a
Right, but
brick
just
home.
be
Don't worry.
aware.
just
She
be
might.
aware
Just
of
be
what's going to
aware
happen.
that, right. And so, Dylan, I
I'm pretty
guess,
sure that Mr. Lenny told you you're not allowed to bring any more spirits home, Terry.
that's my husband. Yes, he's always don't bring. I rescue animals too, Chris. So this has been a
And now
thing
she's
for
Yeah.
our
trying to bring home the spirits too.
38 years of marriage. He's used to be bringing home a dog or a cat or a goldfish. Now, since we've been doing the paranormal thing, he's like, don't bring home anything. Don't bring home anything. And I possibly did bring home a child, but I don't think that she's still here. I think if she kind of comes and goes.
And that could
All right, well,
happen.
here is the
But
video
she,
that Chris sent real quick. I'm going to go
yeah,
ahead and
let's
play
see
it.
Chris's video.
So to explain it real quick, I'm Ricky. That's Ricky. And there's going
Okay,
to be
go ahead and explain it because it mutes you.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is Ricky's going to be right there, and he's going to go off to what would be your left. And you're going to focus on that door frame. Now, I tried to lighten this up as possible because I've noticed when it was on QuickTime, I could see it a lot easier. But on any other program, you couldn't see it pop up. So I had to lighten it up a little bit. And I actually took this to the Para Unity convention, showed it off to like the Ghost Brothers, showed it off to person that's over the dark zone, and they were amazed by it. Ghost Brothers was like, oh, that's the devil. Not going to touch it. But keep an eye on the door frame really closely and see if you can see what we see.
Yeah, what the fuck? There's no way.
I wonder if it's going to even show it all on there.
It may and it may not. The quality tends to be variable.
And
when
keep
live
in mind,
streaming.
Keep in mind, it is a $50 night vision camera from Target that he bought that you did it.
Mhm.
But if you watch it closely by yourself, you will see a figure just come backwards, just like in reverse, pop up in it. And it's one of those things that I think I'm going to have to take a look and see just to be on the safe side. But I think our one of our investigators actually posted it on our YouTube channel. I'm going to check with them and find out. But eventually it will be because we're going to post a lot of the evidence that we've gathered at this place. It's what I call that video is one of our holy grails, which doesn't happen very often in the paranormal, as anybody knows. It's rare. It's a rare feat. Common, yeah, you're going to get EVPs.
Right.
There will be pictures that you'll see. But video is a rare treat. So,
Well,
I
and
guess,
just thinking about it, since this was
Right.
sent through Facebook Messenger, I know that there is something in the way that Facebook compresses images
Yep.
and videos that really takes away from the quality. So if you do have it on YouTube or something, that's going to look a lot better
mhm.
than Facebook, just because
Right.
of how they compress their media.
Oh yeah, just to make it so it fits, which makes perfect sense. I mean,
Mhm.
it is what it is, kind of thing. So
Right, right.
that is, I think that's one of our best pieces of footage that we've ever encountered. And there's a lot of things out there that, yeah, that's how I can explain it.
I'd say that in my opinion, my best piece of footage that I got are these orbs at Howard's house. And We'll have to. I know they're in our files some dang where that's been so long ago that I'll have to go back and find them. But when I send them to you, I'll send you the date that we were there just so you can verify. This looks like the full moon sitting about 4 or 5 feet off the ground. I could not see it with my eye, of course. And I've got same a little point and shoot $50 Sony camera. I didn't have the big Nikon. This was like our pre-investigation. We went to meet Howard and his family, just snapping some pictures. I snapped the first picture and I look and it's like, whoa. And so I kept snapping and I'm following in the beginning there's two orbs and they kind of split off and kind of come back together. But basically this orb goes from, I don't know if you know about Howard's daughter who passed away. It's right outside her bedroom window, and it goes from her bedroom window up over the house to like over her brother's bedroom window, and then out into the sky. And like I followed this thing all way out into the sky, and it looks like the full moon. But the night we were there, I think it was a dark moon or very little moon. And of course, there's no way the moon is 3 feet off the ground.
Oh yeah.
So
So
it's
real
pretty cool. And like I said, we are our own worst critics on that. This definitely is
absolutely.
like a big, bright, full moon. It projects its own light. For me, that's the best evidence, other than the audio that we have.
Hmm. So I actually just sent you something, Terry, to your Facebook Messenger. So the photo I just sent you, this just came from the case that we did this past week. It was the reason why we went and investigated this because the daughter sent it off to us. And this is, I'm not going to lie, this is quite remarkable. It's not human, but it's like, okay, we got to find out what's going on with this particular piece. But yeah, if you look at that picture, it's quite fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, I sent that to Jessica. Can we show that live, or is that
Let's do it.
some clients don't want their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this done with a security camera?
Yeah, so it was on their security camera where they pulled this up. And when we saw this, I'm like, I have to let everybody look at this because I got to debunk it first.
Right,
I'm like, okay,
yeah.
there's something that's not right about this. But this is where I sent it off to Rick and had him look at it. And you're going to notice the woman right there, right at the frame where the kitchen meets the living room. And you can actually see
Right.
a chair through the silhouette. And Rick's like, it's not human. And I'm like, whoa, that okay.
Wait a minute. The woman is not real? That's
No, that's not a real woman.
No. That's
okay.
what we're
I
looking at here,
I
Jess.
was when I'm downloading stuff and getting pictures up, I can only half listen, so I didn't hear every part of the explanation. So I just assumed that was the homeowner because it look all right.
Yeah, well, he's not married. It's so the daughter's the one that reached out to us, and he's a widower. And this picture popped up. It happened not too long ago, and when we saw this, well, okay, we're going to come out and investigate. And they did say they had quite a bit of activity, and it all involves a piece of family heirloom, a bed frame that's been part of the family for generations that most likely this spirit's attached to. So it has to be a relative, is what I'm thinking.
Well, definitely. My first paranormal experience was due to a family heirloom bed frame. So I was we had just moved up here to the property we're on now, and
So
just to
beware of bed frames.
just to be transparent, my great grandfather took his life here on the property. We've had one other suicide here as well, and death by old
Very
age.
recently.
Yeah, the second suicide was very recent, but the bed frame had come out of my great grandfather's house. My parents painted it. We put it in my room, and I was standing in there in my room, and I had my back to the bed, and something grabbed the back of the shirt I was wearing and snatched me down to sitting on the bed. And that was my first real big, okay, I can't write that off paranormal experience. So,
I
bed
can,
frames, no.
yeah, I
And
don't blame
Dylan
you at
has
all.
asked about Ouija boards. So we have expressed our opinion many times on our show. So we'll let
I
Chris
don't do.
answer that
I
first.
don't do.
So,
Yeah.
so as a group, we do not use Ouija boards. We don't have anybody that specializes in them that can shut portals. So we tend to stay away from them. Um, Throughout the years, my opinion about it has changed a little bit, only because I have met people that know how to use a Ouija board. There's actually classes out there that teach you how to use a Ouija board.
Right.
So
Right.
originally, I'd be like, "Oh hell no, no to Ouija boards." But
My brother
as
has one tattooed on his hand, and I didn't let him come in my house for a month afterwards just because I said no Ouija boards in my
exactly,
house.
but it's one of those things. If you're trained to use it and you know how to open and shut the portal, that's a different story. You know how to use it. You know what to do. But there's usually never anything good that comes out of a Ouija board anyway. And as how I see it, there's a lot of bad things out there.
Right.
There was a case where I the demon that's involved with the Ouija board's name was mentioned. Like the guy had no problem with it. I'm like, dude, no. But it comes down to principle and a personal opinion. For me, it's something we don't touch. We will use pendulums. We've got our recorders. We got people that we trust that uses runes, tarot reading cards, stuff along those lines. But we don't have anybody that could use a Ouija board, so we stay away from them.
Yeah,
And
for us,
it's the same.
Terry is very gifted with her pendulum. For me, it's mine's tarot. So, and we just try to be careful.
Yeah. And in Alabama, there's so much negative condensation that goes with witchcraft,
Being
witch
a
tools,
witch,
any of that, being a witch. We now that we're doing this show, we've kind of outed ourselves, but as a team, that's not something that we really advertise. Once
Yeah.
I'm in the door and we determine, okay, do they need a cleansing or whatever, then I kind of offer
we explain that
them,
we're witches,
you know
but we
what?
offer, if they would prefer, we can look for a Christian cleansing.
Yeah.
That's Alabama.
Yeah, we offer, and I kind of put it to them as, you know, Christianity is relatively young as far as religion goes. So, what if your entity that's hanging out is older than Christianity? Is that entity really going to know what the hell you're talking about when you're throwing prayers at them from the Bible? And I'm not
Yeah.
knocking that. I'm not saying that that doesn't work. I'm just saying I believe for me there could be something that's way older than Christianity. So when we do cleansings, we really do prefer to do a Christian cleanse, our cleanse, and we just kind of present it to them as it's not a Native American cleanse, but it would be much like what you would see them do. And so that's
Hmm.
how we kind of get away with it here in Alabama with our cleansings. Um,
I try to avoid the word pagan or witch if I'm talking to someone I know is
Yeah.
very Christian rooted, and I tend to go, if I'm gonna mention that it's older, I tend to go with something like, I lean towards Celtic cleansing. That tends to go over a little better than saying pagan or witch.
And in Utah, especially
yeah,
since it's a
we really don't.
yeah, with Utah, it's religious based because of the LDS Church. You have to be very careful. There are times where we would
Go
have
ahead.
a case, then it got canceled. Unfortunately, you have to be very careful on what you're going to use. So you do have to explain to them, okay, there's these options, and kind of like you said, they're just say Celtic instead of using
Pagan or
pagan
witchcraft.
craft. Yeah, because
Mhm.
we've got all different types with WASP, what we can and cannot do type thing, but we can always reach out to somebody who can help us out.
And Joshua brings up a good point
Right,
as
and we
well.
do
A
that
lot of
too.
times, though, if we have captured evidence, like we've got some really pretty good evidence, once we show it to the client, typically you will find that their opinions on doing a pagan type cleansing have changed when they're actually confronted with evidence. because they're like, okay, but it is about time for us to wrap up, and I just wanted to give you time
Right,
to
it
get
is,
anything
and I
that you
was
wanted
good.
to say out.
Yeah, thank you very
Let
much.
me
So,
address Dylan. Dylan has asked one more question. Let me throw this out there, Dylan. I believe, and this is my belief, you don't need any kind of tools to talk to your loved ones or anyone. You just talk to them and they can hear you. That's my belief. Now, Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you.
man, this hour went by fast. But yeah, if you're ever interested in more about us, you can check out our website, which is wasparanormal.org. And then we're also on Facebook, we're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter as well. And then also, I want to throw out a special shout out to our sponsor, Dark Prime Collectibles, which you can check them out on Facebook as well. And a special thanks to all my team members that are a part of WASP. Thank you to everybody. You guys are truly remarkable, and I appreciate everything you guys do.
And also,
Well,
let's say
Chris,
that
we
if anybody
appreciate
does
you.
have children who have said that they have seen the boogeyman or the monster coming out of their closets, be a good person to get in touch with right here. One of us can put you in touch with Chris to get some information, maybe a drawing of your children.
Yep. And if it
Right.
helps out,
Yeah, we're going to.
a good
I'm
email
sorry. I
to
think
reach
I'm
out to.
delayed again. I was just
Yeah.
saying, thank you, Chris, for being on the show. We'd love to have you back again sometime. Maybe I won't have so
Absolutely.
many technical issues. And yeah, we're going to jump on this study with Chris with the boogeyman and the monsters. So definitely get a hold of us. Check out Chris, his team, his Facebook, his Twitter, his TikTok, all of his stuff. Great guy,
And what is
really
the email? What
interesting.
is the email you were about to give, Chris? And I'll put that in the chat for everybody.
So the best email to get a hold of us at is wasputah721@gmail.com.
All right, so I've got that going in the chat now on all three.
And
Perfect.
there we go. So yeah, y'all send those pictures of the boogeyman and the monster to Chris. And thank everybody for joining us. It's been a great show. This hour did fly by fast. And again, like I said, Chris, thanks for joining us. And anytime you want to come on with us, brother, you're welcome to.
Anytime works for me. So yeah, definitely.
We will see our viewers Sunday night.
Yep, Sunday night will be encore hexing.